Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible space that's hosting us. We're here at Afrika House in Nairobi, and honestly, it's one of those places that reflects the kind of conversations we love having on this podcast. Afrika House is a hidden Nairobi residence that's part art gallery and part cultural space. Afrika House exists to champion young African artists and invest in the creative economy. It's also a place where people gather for meaningful conversations, film screenings, and discussions about the issues shaping Africa today. If you're planning an intimate dinner, a creative workshop, a panel discussion, an art exhibition, or any gathering where connection and purpose matter, Afrika House is truly worth checking out. You can find them on Instagram or use the contact details in our show notes to learn more about booking the space. And if you're ever in Nairobi, I hope you get the chance to experience it for yourself. Now let's get into today's conversation.
Welcome to Moxie Uncut. I'm your host, Jenny Nuccio, social entrepreneur, designer, innovator, and founder of Amani Collective. This season is all about reset. Real stories, the ones that don't make it into the captions. Failure, pivots, burnouts, heartbreaks, and the quiet courage to just begin again. Each week, I sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers that are building with purpose. We talk about the resets that shaped them, the lessons that they learned the hard way, and the strength that found them on the other side. If you're in a season of rebuilding or redesigning, you're not alone. You're right where you need to be. So let's dig in.
Welcome to the Moxie Podcast. We are in the season of reset, and I am so thrilled to have Peter here, right here in the seat in your beautiful home. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
I've been so anticipating this moment because since Nairobi Design Week of meeting you, and actually I was sharing with someone, I was sitting by this guy, and then I was like, hey, who are you? And you're like, I'm Peter. This is my house. And I was like, cool. Do you ever do that where you meet someone important? I was like, this is like an important moment. And it was like
I think the best way to meet someone is to have as little information about them as you possibly can have.
Yeah.
Because then you meet them as a human being, not as a bio that's
exactly
introduced. So that's why I really like the fact you didn't do my bio.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, welcome to my podcast where I never do the bio, which I've actually offended people because of that. But I don't go throughout the whole bio because I just want to have a conversation.
Fantastic.
So we have been in this season of reset. Moxie's been around for a little over 7 years now, but this season I really wanted to talk about what it means in the messy and rebuilding and how we've pivoted and changed as entrepreneurs, creatives, and humans in general. So when I got here and I saw this beautiful space and I just saw all the collaboration going on, I was really, really inspired because one of my top values is community and collaboration. And so I was like, we got to have you in this chair to kind of share what your inspiration of this was. So I kind of want to start there and then we'll dig back a little bit. But just in coming up with this concept of Afrika House and bringing these conversations together and having collaborative community, how did that even begin in your head of wanting to do this?
Well,
I know it's a big question.
Big question. But, I think there's one important origin story is that I had been in Kenya. I've been here now 12 years or something. I'd been here a couple of years and I knew one of the top writers and one of the top painters. And the writer was signed to the same publisher that I was signed to. And the painter had just been exhibiting in a city I was in. And when I came back to Kenya, I said, oh, great, we should all get together, all of us, because we're signed to the same publishers and we go to the same parties in Berlin. And they were like, we haven't met each other. And I was like, well, how could you not meet each other? You guys are the bomb and you live in Kenya and how come you don't know each other? And they both said a version separately of, well, there wasn't a place for them to meet. There wasn't institutions where they would go. They wouldn't go to the same bars. And if they did, would they meet each other? And so I set out to try and build, a number of years after that, build a space that would allow the people from different silos, whether it's art, impact, tech, creative economy in other areas, music, to meet and be in the same room together at whatever level they are in the industry. And that is the origin. That's why I call myself, my title is chief convener. That's my job, is to convene, not to drive it, not to be the star of the show. That's not what I'm here for. My job is to convene.
Yeah. No, I love that. One of your titles, I always, in the bio, I look at different titles, and one of your titles you put as like just being kind of this avid art collector. And so obviously you love art, you value it, and you value the human behind it. When did that start? Like, when did you start? Was that very early when you were still in Australia and you were still, in business and you really valued art then? Or was it, maybe when you entered into Kenya? I'm just curious.
I mean, I think one of the things to remember is that I grew up around art,
Yeah.
so much so that I didn't know it was in my world. It was just like the paint on the wall. They were paintings on the wall that my mum and my father had started the year that I was born. They bought their first 3 pictures from a local art show in the suburb in Western Australia where they were living, where I was a baby. And they went to a local community arts hall and bought 3 pictures to put on their wall. Years later, my mother's collection has turned into a substantial collection with a very important collection of Australian Aboriginal art, one of the most important collections in the world. But it was just around me as I grew up, and so I benefited from seeing these amazing pictures, uh, hearing these amazing stories, meeting these amazing artists, but not seeing it as anything special. It was just what mum and dad did, as is what I watched as I grew up, and so from a very early age, in my first job, which was in 1989, I traveled to the Soviet Union just a month after the Berlin Wall had come down, and I was able to, with a few $100s, buy a bunch of Russian art because they were mad for any piece of foreign currency at all. And I don't know, I was 21 or something, and I was buying art in Russia, and it seemed pretty exciting. And it was all anti-communist, anti the state. It was all very political, and those were the first pieces of art that I bought way back in that day. And like I said, they were not very expensive because everyone needed dollars.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because I just never, as an individual, I mean, I grew up in America. I never grew up around art. And I was actually like, not shunned, but frowned upon to be creative. So when I found out I had this like creativity to me, it was this like new thing that I got to step into and develop and grow. And so the fact that that's always been kind of like in your veins and as you've grown is, I think, really unique that you've had that with your parents.
Yeah, but don't get me wrong, but don't get the story wrong.
Yeah.
What I wanted to be when I was a kid, I wanted to pursue art, and, ceramics and woodwork, which were my favorite subjects at school, but there was no chance of doing that. When I was asked by the school guidance counselor what I wanted to be when I grew up, I said I wanted to be a jockey. He said, "Forget that, you're too tall, if not a photographer." And he said, "That's not a career, it's a hobby."
Mm.
And at the age of 14, he said, "Economics and law is the path for you." And lo and behold, I woke up like 10 years later and I had an economics and a law degree, and I'd follow the path against, subconsciously, followed the path of my school guidance counselor. So, yeah, art was never an option for me until much later in life when I
Yeah.
got to turn it into my environment, my business, and my hobby.
Yeah. So, okay, so then let's talk about that because today is really about reset and kind of pivot. So, you moved into that, you grew this career working with different entrepreneurs, business, you even said like agriculture across sectors. And then obviously you landed here 12, 13 years ago. In those seasons, I like to talk about kind of closed doors, but open doors. So, were there any closed doors for you that you now can look back and are grateful for that then pushed you into another open door?
Yeah, every single door, that hit me on the ass on the way out, I'm thankful for.
Mhm.
And the glamorous part of my bio is that I've had 5 of the best jobs in the world. Um, the less glamorous and less talked about is all of those usually involved a slightly messy end and a necessary reset afterwards. I ran an entertainment company in New York. I ran a cattle company in Australia. I ran a professional sports team. I ran a branding agency. I have done, had amazing jobs, right? And literally, it was like one of Australia's best loved, if not best loved, rugby teams. The cattle company is the largest cattle ranching business in the world. The branding agency was a branding agency for Sydney, Australia, which sells itself. So I've had incredible jobs, um, but they all, you know, tend to have um, difficult, complex endings, and then a need for a real reset because I've threw myself into that job. I was, Mr. Touring shows in the US, touring comedians and live stage shows around the world. Um, our last couple of shows were the English comic Eddie Izzard and the American comic Jerry Seinfeld, and I wrapped my personality up into that, and I was doing touring shows, and then that was over, and then I had to find a new identity. I had to reset. Then I ended up running a cattle company in Australia, and I became a friggin' cowboy. Now, I'd always been a bit of a cowboy, and I always loved, none of these were fake. I'm not saying these were I put on an act. I'm not saying I invented anything at all. This was just part of me. This is who I was. I let that bit come out.
Yeah.
But it did require a reset because I had made sure that I was, when I say in character, it sounds like you're faking it or you're acting it. No, I just lived and breathed that.
Yeah.
And then when I had to change, it was a proper reset. Yeah. I really felt the tough parts of reset, that it's whenever I'm, doing anything, whenever I'm leading an organization or something, I throw my heart and soul into it. That's me. I can't do it any other way. And I live and breathe it. And then when it's over, I'm like, well, who am I? Do I exist anymore if I don't have that job, if I'm not in that role? So I have to reset and rebuild myself and remind myself that I was actually something before that
Yeah.
that gig.
Yeah. I think I like how you said it wasn't in the sense like inauthentic because we're all multifaceted and have different sides of us that get to come out if we allow it. But in that, like those valleys I'm going to get really practical for like listeners, right? In those valleys, like what are some things that you did? Maybe it's a habit, it was a rhythm or something to allow you to get out of it. Like, because I think there's times where we might even have a stagnation or we might just be sitting there when we're in the middle of a transition, right? And that reset. So, what are some practical things that allowed you to not just stay down, but again, maybe reinvent and move forward?
Yeah, I think includes the lessons of the things not to do,
Yeah.
like sitting on your ass and feeling sorry for yourself. Like that doesn't work. Getting in your own head doesn't work. Um, I've always had pretty much the same, and I'm not sure how it applies to other people, but I've always viewed myself as a in motion sort of guy, that I need to be in motion, devouring books, thinking of ideas, meeting with people, riding a bicycle as much as I possibly can, going to the gym as much as I possibly can, cooking as much food for people as I possibly can. I need to be in motion for the sort of the engine to start working again, because I have, after particularly one of those transitions, I did sit on my butt for 8 weeks, and I think they call that type of behavior depression. I think some of the thoughts that I had were pretty depressive thoughts. And I've done that, and that doesn't work for me. And the sort of stare at your navel sort of thing or look down, it doesn't work for me. I have to rebuild. And for me, I always go, there's a theory that like we think change will come and then we go into action. But a lot of people go into action and then change comes. So I think I have to be in action, and that's why I included in that list, literally movement on a bicycle, but also in action, cooking food for other people and giving it to them,
Mm-hmm.
which could waste an entire day, was necessary for me to be to be moving through that. So yeah, and I've had really big transitions from like entrepreneurial to corporate, from corporate to entrepreneurial, to financial stability to financial risk,
Mhm.
4 or 5 different countries, a heap of kids, um, accidents, challenges, conflicts, war. I've had all of those, and I think I've largely kept myself sane, largely, by being committed to being in motion, to be learning, uh, and to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I find that that's a common theme with, like, people with grit and resilience. It's like, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and it looks obviously different for everybody, but, I think in order to get to, again, that next stage or what do we even define as, success is will get us there, and that brings me to success. I think when we're younger, we have this picture perfect not picture perfect, but we have this picture of what success looks like. I'm curious in your life how that definition has changed over time and how you would define that now.
Um, well, you said, the doors that we pass through.
Mhm.
Um, I think probably one of the luckiest thing I ever had in my life is uh, great loss and great success at uh, a relatively early age. Um, I watched my dad uh, build a very successful business and then essentially lose it all, rebuild a bit, uh, and then die. Um, and in part because he worked himself too hard. We would always have tried to say to him, "Hey, Dad, we don't care. I mean, as long as we got the house, and we can go to school, you don't have to rebuild to that." But he really did. He really pushed it back, and so great loss. Losing my dad at a very young age, um, and then in business, I had good fortune to get successful really early. Uh, it's a it's a funny story in a way, but I was living in America in the 1990s, and one year I got this check, and I'd made $1 million, and I was a millionaire. And I looked at myself like I'm 26, I'm a millionaire, and I was like, I'm just as tired as I was yesterday. I'm just as happy as I was yesterday. I'm exactly the same person. So all that work I did to get that, because I thought that was the goal. I thought you should have the goal to be, you should get the goal to have a check in your hand that says $1 million because you're then a millionaire. And I thought, oh, that was a really stupid goal. It was really silly to have that goal because now I'm holding it. It's a piece of paper. And I'm exactly as concerned about my relationship, my kids, um, what I'm doing on the weekend, the fact that my shoes don't fit, the fact that I haven't enough sleep. I want to get to gym. I'm exactly as concerned about all that stuff. The fact that I haven't called my mum and all that stuff. I'm exactly as concerned about with or without this piece of paper. This piece of paper doesn't mean anything. So I think I was really lucky to have, it took me a couple of times to learn that lesson, being hit over the head with, traditional forms of success do not make you happy. Traditional forms of success do not make you happy. Traditional forms of success do not make you happy. So I had to um, learn that lesson a couple of times, but I was able to learn at 21. My dad died. 26, I had my first real success. And so I think I was really lucky for that. So I started to change my definition of success um, at that, pretty young age.
Yeah, that's good. Um, yeah, I think everyone obviously is like, "Oh, we want the finances, we want that," and at the end of the day, it's, does that truly, create happiness and
Well, and but by the way, let me be really clear. I'm not saying we don't need stability. I'm not saying we don't all need to have, a foundation or something to fall back from. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying what was for me at that time the goal, the most amount of money that I imagined having, and then I had it. Riches, call it riches rather than real wealth, didn't stack up to anything.
Yeah, agreed. Something that I just got to experience when I was here the first time here at Africa House was like just genuine conversation and community and caring for each other. And just even us meeting and you taking the time to hear a story and then immediately connecting me to other people that would connect to that story. And I really valued that because, again, connection, community, collaboration, all those are something that teach to our team at Amani Collective and just what we're doing. And it's just really genuine values. And so I want to talk about where we're sitting because I think what you've created here is beautiful in that sense of bringing people together, like that origin story of creating that connection. So share a little of history for people of just even from that inception and thought to building and to kind of what you're building here right now.
um, well, I can say that I have made every mistake possible
I wasn't expecting that sentence, but that is a good.
here, and I think in the other parts of my life, and I think you know one of those one of those quotes from an American writer, I forget whom, was hurry up and fail, right? That's what you want to do, and in a sense, doing business in Africa, where a lot of the models don't already exist, gives you a greater freedom to hurry up and fail. Because it's if you're opening a pizza joint in New York City, you can go to a place to get the pizza cabinet, the pizza oven, the menu, the signboard. You can open it exactly like every other pizza shop on every second corner in New York City and sell a slice. Here, so much of this is being built from the ground up, being built in a way that no one has done it before, that you get to experiment. So, how could I make the nicest possible environment where anyone from any part of Kenyan culture would feel at home, right? So, I haven't found that here. The nicest hotels feel extremely, how does one say, colonial AF, right? We don't want, because that's going to put people off, right? There's some people who walk into that room and say, the boat over there is Vasco da Gama's boat. His little history with Africa. Anyway, so that's literally in a hotel here, right? Um, uh, we wanted to make a place that the conversations would flow freely, where anyone as part of Kenyan society, no matter where they came from, would feel comfortable in this room. But make it very nice. Make sure every detail is done really well. And it'll be a mix up of, great art and things I found on the side of the road. And, a cowbell that fell off in Samburu, and a tree that fell over a friend's car, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
They will all come together in a place that is intentional. We create the environment, the room, the rooms, all the different rooms here um, are the environment, but they're nothing without the people we put in the rooms. But environment creates the way people behave. My friends were saying after a particular soccer match, recently, why do the fans go out and burn cars, afterwards? Well, that's what you do after a soccer match. Um, that's the culture. And when you have a nice room like this and someone sets up the conversation and serves exactly the right food or drink, then that leads to a different type of conversation and a respect. And I'm going to disagree with you, but I'm going to say it in a way where I'm not going to punch you in the face. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to create that environment, and it's very deliberate. Every single piece, every single book, everything is chosen to set that up.
Yeah. Even in the bathroom, I was walking and it says you're no, it says you're like not safe for
you may be in first class, but you're not any safer or
Yeah,
something like that. I
exactly.
was like,
So
and
you're
it's
not any,
just
you're not any safer in first class.
yes. And I was
Yeah.
like, every piece is very deliberate and intentional, and everywhere you read, it's yeah, it's there's equality there, there's inclusion, and there's an open conversation, and
Yeah.
yeah, I really, really value that. So.
Yeah.
And is there anything exciting in the horizon of like future of like any other visions or things
Listen, I think
going
I
on?
think we are. Yes, I think there's a
Things you
lot.
can share, some things you can't share.
I want to say that I think this is a work in progress. I want to say that we will be judged on where we get this to. And I think we've proved that there is a demand for smart gatherings, smart conversations, great food, special events and gatherings, and good design, and what we call exceptional events and design stays. And I think we've proved there's a demand for that, and that cuts across all walks of Kenyan life. We're not in the luxury business, but we do exceptional things, right? We're not into fine art, but we do the best contemporary arts that we can find and be involved with in Kenya. So yeah, I find what I do, I'm glad at this point in my life with all the things I've done, I find this another one of the most amazing things I've ever done. And I put it in the list of, 4 or 5 of the world's best jobs.
Your bio, if you walk
Yeah.
by, you have literally hit almost every sector now. Like, okay, Peter. Okay, for our listeners, we'll end with this because obviously people are the main audience that listens to Moxie are creatives, entrepreneurs, and building something.
Right.
So, what's something that you can leave them with to just inspire or motivate them this week to like keep going? Most people might be in a reset season, but what's a little inspirational oomph you can give our listeners?
I picked that up in some of the pre-reading I did on this, that I might be asked that question. And I said to myself, aren't I the worst person in the world to ask that? Because I stumble in and out of creativity. Sometimes I do something, put it aside, and then rediscover it a month later, and it's the favorite thing that I've done in months. It's like I am terrible at knowing what is good in the moment. And so, I think that other creatives I know who have this same issue think or hear we're told, because we see the finished product of people, we're told that was right or that was achievement or that's what they set out to achieve. But we have no idea whether that painting was ripped out of that painter's hand halfway through, whether he sold it to get a little bit of extra money, or whether he labored on it for years and he thought it was perfect at the end. The reality is what happens, happens. And the pressure we put on ourselves is our energy. Is our enemy and our energy. The pressure we put on ourselves is the energy to get it done. If we don't put pressure on ourselves, we're not going to care about what it is. But it's also our enemy. That we're like, I don't know, is this perfect? Does it really have to be? All of Afrika House, I didn't intend to be the architect. I didn't intend to be the builder. I didn't intend to be the interior decorator. It just happened that way. I didn't intend to have this art be in this way, and this how it came. And I had this energy to do it, but I had this feeling that it wasn't going to be good enough for anybody and I'd never make it right. And that was and until I stepped back, walked away a bit, and then saw it, and I was like, oh, people seem to like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love all of that. And I'm so happy that, well, you're in this chair, your chair, and your house, and we got to record here today. It's been such a beautiful kind of just creative collaboration and being able to be here. I'm excited to continue to get to see how this space grows and the conversations that happen. And whenever you're in Mombasa, you have to come see us.
I'd love to see you guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Of course, it's Moxie Uncut, and it's the reset season. It's all about rebuilding and redefining and just figuring out all the things in the messy. So, as always, friends, Moxie on.
Thanks for being here with me on Moxie Uncut. If something stayed with you, please pass it on. These stories are meant to be shared. And if you're in a season of rebuilding or becoming, then just keep going. I'll see you here next week.